Please understand that Saturday was the best day the Big 12 has had, collectively, in its football history. I can back that statement up. BYU, Utah, Texas Tech. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the world. We will start with a rundown of the entire conference. It was beautiful. If you think the statement, it's the best day in Big 12 history, I don't believe that, you may think that was hyperbolic. And I can tell you why it's not hyperbolic. And if you do think that I'm just blowing hot air up your skirt and that it was hyperbolic, then I can almost guarantee you that you're unable to spell the word hyperbolic. Because if you don't see how Saturday was a monumental day for the Big 12's odds at a national championship for multiple teams, then let me help you. We'll start there. Then, the Heisman winner is a Big 12 linebacker, the quarterback of the defense. Jacob Rodriguez deserves the hype. I'll make my case, and you'll sit, and you'll listen, and you'll say, that's a good case right there. And the Big 12, from UCF to West Virginia, will be propped up by my case for a Heisman winner. And then, BYU and Utah, they did what they had to do. There's been a murder. And it's exactly what the Big 12 Conference needed. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. If I didn't say that, great. If I did, you heard it twice. Look, we have never been in a spot as a conference because there has never been a 12-team playoff until last year where 3 of our schools could compete for a national championship. It's never been a thing. In the 4-team playoff, certainly 3 teams couldn't get in. In the BCS era, there were only 2 teams ever, so 3 teams were impossible. Saturday, we solidified for the first time in this league's history that 3 different schools deserve a spot to compete for a national championship. And the committee, not a single person, can look at what BYU, Utah, or Texas Tech did and say, that's not good enough. Every one of these teams did what was good enough to say, look at me. If you doubted, look at me. Texas Tech winning at home, putting the hurt on UCF, making them look small and puny, just ravaging their football program. They're going to have to, they'll talk about this for generations at UCF as the game where everything went wrong. Tech got up 38-2 at the break. Baron Morton didn't have to play the end of the second quarter. Jacob Rodriguez is putting up generational stats without playing a full 4 quarters any given week. 48-9 over UCF, and they did it the same way they've been doing it. Blowing your socks off, your doors off. Utah over Baylor. In a game where, you know what? Devin Dampier, 6 for 13, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. He didn't have to do anything. Bert Ficklin, 6 carries, 166 yards. Wayshawn Parker, 15 carries, 129 yards. Utah as a team, 380 yards rushing. You broke the will on the road of an above 500 team. BYU against TCU. 44-13. Josh Hoover, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, struggled to complete double-digit passes. Didn't do it till the last drive. 10 for 23. 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. You, as a committee member, an AP poll voter, as a human being, you cannot look at those 3 results and say, yeah, could have been better. But instead, with the loss from Alabama, who now has 2 losses, with a loss from Texas, you say, wow, the Utah defense is legit. Their run game is legit. That BYU freshman quarterback deserves a whole lot of respect, and Texas Tech might have a Heisman Trophy winner. Those teams deserve to get in. And then, yay, the naysayers will come to the forefront and proclaim Arizona beating Cincinnati is bad for the league. You know what? Maybe. But eventually, wasn't BYU supposed to beat Cincinnati? Isn't that our blueprint to get multiple teams into the college football playoff? We didn't need Cincinnati at the top of this equation. And Arizona, who BYU has beaten, further showcases that they're a very good football team and that Brent Brennan has a future as their head coach, at least one more year. Noah Fafita, 294 yards on the road against a stingy Cincinnati defense. And Brendan Sorsby, 15 for 28. He's fizzling out. He's not what we expected him to be. A couple of interceptions. Here a few weeks ago, it was, why aren't we talking about him as a Heisman Trophy contender? He protects the ball so well. He's so tactical. And now Sorsby has fallen off as a guy that we don't reference really at all in the Big 12 conversation. So you may sit there and say, well, now BYU or Utah or somebody loses strength of schedule because Cincinnati lost to Arizona. And so if everybody else in the conference is going to finish it 8-4 or 9-3, if we have a conglomerate of 8-4, 9-3, I don't care at some point, at some level. And if you're a fan of a Big 12 team, you probably shouldn't either. I don't care what those logos are and who those are. We are getting to the point where we're at the juncture where BYU, Utah, Texas Tech are the three schools that if you're a Kansas State fan, you're going, you know what? Shoot, I hope they win. Because the more they win, the more money the conference gets, the more respect the conference gets, and the better idea that what you don't understand is if you're an Oklahoma State fan, if you're a Baylor fan, if you're a UCF fan, you're sitting and you're thinking, why does this matter for me? Why does this matter? Because in 2 years, if the Big 12 sucks, if we just suck completely, blow chunks, terrible, not good, rotten, which is what it felt like at the end of last year, no national attention. Then 2 years from now, when UCF is knocking on the door, when West Virginia is knocking on the door saying, let us into the playoff, the committee's going to say, Colorado, goodbye. Be gone. Because your conference is terrible. But if we have a bunch of 8-4 teams, 9-3 teams, and then three squads at the top of the league who say, hey, nationally, we are relevant. We have the defense to be there, the run game to be there, the line to be there, the trenches to be there. That's when the Big 12 gets the respect it deserves. That's when you get the respect you deserve in 2 years when you want to get in. Because they point and say, remember that one time in 2025 when the Big 12 got 2-3 teams in the college football playoff and they all won a game? That is when it's going to matter the most. That is when this is all going to make sense for you. West Virginia, a ton of fight, man. I love this West Virginia team. Scotty Fox Jr. is a dog. 353 yards from the fifth-string quarterback against a stingy Arizona State defense. Jeff Sims, also a dog. This was just a great football game to watch. I had fun watching the football game between these two teams. And I'm sad, I'm sorry West Virginia couldn't win. And I'm happy that Arizona State could win. It's one of those, you're like, dang, I'm rooting for both teams, both coaches. Rooting for everybody involved in this because they all seem like they're doing it the right way. The Mountaineers, 421 yards of offense. They just can't run the ball. They just can't run the ball. They had a fourth and goal opportunity. A first and goal opportunity, couldn't punch it in, right? Every fourth and goal opportunity starts with that. And they couldn't get it done. And it's frustrating, and I hate it. But the passion of that fan base, the passion of those teams, that players, I should say, on that team, admirable. And then Kansas State, fire the football program into the sun. You squandered what was a Heisman candidate quarterback preseason. Your run game isn't great. None of this was fun. This sucked. 14-6, they beat Oklahoma State. I want to throw up my mouth, even think I watched a large portion of this game as well. And again, I think throw up in my mouth is the appropriate way to react to what I saw. None of it was good. Just bad football. Kansas State, 14 first downs. Oklahoma State, 23. They're the worst team maybe in Big 12 history. Sorry, Oklahoma State. And Kansas State just didn't look good at all. No goo. Not good. What is good? Elite even. It's Jacob Rodriguez. The Big 12 has a Heisman Trophy winner for the second year in a row. Here's my case, and I'll tell you why you should care. I'm Locked On Big 12. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is exactly where I go during the college football season when I see that a team like Utah is only a 9.5-point favorite against Baylor. And I say, FanDuel, here is $200 to say that Utah will beat Baylor by more than 9.5. And when they do, FanDuel gives me all of that money. And the NBA is here. There's no better place to bet on the NBA than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, combine your live bets into same-game parlays for a shot at bigger payouts. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel. The official sports betting partner of the NBA is FanDuel. The Heisman Trophy winner plays in the Big 12. And for the second season in a row, the Heisman Trophy winner plays on defense. Jacob Rodriguez of Texas Tech is not getting the national respect deserved, and he should win the Heisman. If you're a Cincinnati fan, UCF fan, maybe an Arizona fan saying, well, what do I want to listen to this for? What's the point? Dog, whether you have played him, you will play him, or you will watch him play on Sundays or that coveted Saturday, December 6th in the Big 12 championship game, Jacob Rodriguez is a story that all 16 fan bases should be rallied around. If you do not know yet, I'm not sure what rock you've been under, but if you do not know yet, this is a guy who is a quarterback in high school, goes to Virginia because he wants to play quarterback, doesn't pan out, takes a chance on himself, moves to Texas Tech, goes across the country to Texas Tech, where he is a walk-on, paying his way through Texas Tech, living on like a floor of an apartment for a semester. And now he has numbers that don't just rival Manti Te'o's. They blow them out of the water. Not only that, he has a very real girlfriend. What wife? I think Manti Te'o's was a girlfriend. Well, it wasn't. He thought it was a girlfriend. Turns out she wasn't real. This is very real. Jacob Rodriguez's wife, who flies Black Hawk helicopters for the United States military. Gambling Gauchos posts this to Twitter. Manti Te'o's first 11 games during his Heisman runner-up campaign versus Jacob Rodriguez through the first 11 games of 2025. Rodriguez should be a Heisman finalist this season. Te'o, 98 tackles. Rodriguez, 100. Te'o, 5.5 tackles for loss. Jacob Rodriguez, 9.5. Te'o's got him by half a sack and a couple interceptions. 6 for the old Notre Dame star, 4 for the Texas Tech Red Raider. But Jacob Rodriguez has forced 7 fumbles and scored 2 touchdowns this season. Manti Te'o had 0 of each. The Big 12 menace is beating out a Heisman frontrunner who finished second in tackles. He's beating him in tackles, tackles for loss, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, touchdowns, and living loved ones. This is a travesty that the national media is not talking more about Jacob Rodriguez. 48-9 final score against UCF. Taven Jackson was 27 for 33. That's not bad. So you think if he's that accurate, the one interception must have been pretty impressive. Oh, it was. It was to Jacob Rodriguez. He's also a pivotal reason why the Knights only rushed for 52 yards on their 29 carries. That's 1.8 yards per rush. They're long on the game, 20 yards. The offense of Texas Tech didn't have to do much heavy lifting when a guy like Rodriguez, who had 9 tackles in this game, is stepping up so big. He is a generational talent in this conference. He is a generational talent in college football. And yes, coming into this season, somehow, some way, the national media didn't want to tell you about Rodriguez. They didn't know about him. They didn't want to give him any pomp and circumstance. But what he has done last season, 127 tackles, 5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and an interception. Yet coming into this year, Big 12 preseason defensive player of the year, but America, ESPN, Fox, CBS, you turn your TV on, and they don't give a rat's ass. And I do not understand how somewhere we lost in translation that a guy could be not just generational from a mystique standpoint. He's got this like Paul Bunyan thing to him with the big mustache and the wife who's a badass in the military. And he's got this urban legend vibe Cowboy had on after the game. That's one thing. But then when the numbers back it up, I don't understand how I can look at these statistics over the last 2 seasons, well over 200 tackles. Oh, that's incredible. 7 forced. His right and left arms have forced 7 fumbles this season. You understand how rare that is? How hard that is to do? How many teams in America wish they had forced 7 fumbles themselves? Yet for some reason, We don't want to talk to you outside of the Big 12 circles, outside of a Big 12 podcast, outside of Texas Tech, and the way that they are pumping him up. America, for some reason, does not want to talk about Jacob Rodriguez, arguably the best story this year in college football. Look, I get it. Trinidad Chambliss, Ole Miss, quarterback. Not a Heisman contender, but great story. Certainly a great story. I understand the question marks around like a Gunnar Stockton who's playing really good football. I get Fernando Mendoza, the transfer goes to Indiana, and they're winning a lot of games. But I do not see a more consistent, a more effective, a more all-American, all-college football guy than Jacob Rodriguez, who's representing the Big 12. If he was doing this at LSU, which he would, by the way, he would have these same numbers. If he was doing this at LSU, at Ohio State, at Alabama, at Georgia, at Texas A&M, then they'd be talking about it. They'd be telling you week in and week out how good this kid is and how he's a Heisman candidate. And so what sucks about this is it goes past how the Big 12 doesn't get a lot of respect for the College Football Playoff Committee and where they rank these teams. But now we don't get a lot of respect when individual players deserve more. Like I think if Travis Hunter was not playing under Deion last year, I don't know if he gets all the hype, right? Like at some level, it's like this whole thing has become a PR scheme. This whole thing has become, oh, well, unless you play for the big name coach, unless you yourself have the sexy name, unless you yourself are playing for the team in the SEC, we won't give it to you. I think Max Duggan deserved the Heisman for very similar reasons to Jacob Rodriguez and had the stats to do it. I hear more about Torian York, the Texas A&M kid who was originally committed to Baylor and then bolted to go to A&M. 74 tackles. Not even close. Not even close. One forced fumble. Not even close. It just doesn't, he does not have the pedigree of what Jacob Rodriguez is, but I hear more nationally on ESPN about Torian York, who leads Texas A&M. Why? Because it's some piece of this. At some piece of the road, at a juncture, we all decided the Big 12 didn't matter as much. That even if a player is putting up generational numbers, better than Manti Te'o, who at this point in the year for Notre Dame was the talk of college football. Can he win the Heisman? Will he win the Heisman? And Rodriguez is not in the top 10 in Heisman odds. I'd go put $10 on it right now. That's like 10 to win 500. It's pretty good use of $10 if you ask me. Hopefully you can call your local congressman, call a senator. I don't know how much they do anyway. But you can give them a ring and at least try. Tell them Jacob Rodriguez deserves the Heisman, and they should do all in their power to make sure that it happens. Coming up, BYU, Utah. Did they take care of business? Are they doing enough? Locked on Big 12. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is exactly where I go when I want to go see Jacob Rodriguez play at a college football game. I say, boop, boop, boop. Find those tickets. And with Gametime, I can do the little, my favorite part of it is the zone deal. You pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, you save big. Pull up Gametime, couple taps, see amazing deals talking as low as $25 for your favorite college football games. It's why I use Gametime. It's the most user-friendly, in my opinion, the most user-friendly ticket service available. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime. Do it today. It's Gametime. This is the part of the show where I wax poetic about two teams that I begged to do something this week that they did. I told you. And at the time of recording this, by the way, it's 1:30 in the morning Eastern time where I live. So the BYU game's not even over yet. But I'm just like, you know what? It's after the Tanner Wall interception. Yeah, it's done. It's over. 44-13. That is the final score here. Is a bloodbath. And I said that BYU and Utah both need to create a new number. Need to invent a number that no one's ever heard yet and win their games by that many points. And it's exactly what BYU and Utah did. I am blown away. Where was this version of the Cougars the rest of the year in all of the close games that they played? It took losses seemingly for Utah and BYU both. Losses to Texas Tech to look across the field and say, oh, shoot. That's what a national championship team looks like. If we're going to compete for the college football playoff, if we're going to make it that deep, if we're going to win, we have to look like that. And Kalani Sitake, I get he preaches love and respect and kindness, but man, I want to love my brother next to me so much that I beat the absolute mess out of TCU to the point where they fall into submission and I make the college football playoff because I say, look, committee, in my last 2 or 3 games, here is what I did. Yes, I lost to a top 10 team on the road, but here is what I did at 11-1. I think BYU and Utah both showcased that tonight. And here is my question. Texas A&M beat a 3-6 team 31-30 at home, 3-6. BYU beat a 6-3 team, blew their doors off at home. 6-3 team. A&M played a 3-6 team, 1-point win versus 3-4 touchdown win. Utah plays a 5-4 Baylor team, wins on the road by 30. At what point will we start valuing wins? Alabama loses to a team that's going to miss a bowl game in Florida State at a top 10 team playing at home. Utah loses to 2 top 12 teams, both on the road. BYU loses 1 game to a top 6 team on the road. Rank the teams based on the games they play and not your hypothetical mind games. The cowards of the College Football Playoff Committee are looking at Alabama and saying they would beat Utah with zero basis, with zero idea. You can't recreate the game in the aggregate. It doesn't work that way. BYU just proved against Josh Hoover, who at one point was a Heisman caliber quarterback, a Heisman conversation quarterback, that the Cougars are for real, that they're legit. And look, I get it. BYU hates TCU. Utah. The BYU hates Utah in like a loving way. And I think BYU should hate TCU and should hate Baylor and should hate everybody left on their schedule. Hate in a loving way, Kalani. But you're kind of holding hands with Utah right now and saying, boys, we're going to have to do this the rest of the way together. Because in my opinion, and it's not even, it's objective, the best case scenario for the Big 12 is Texas Tech, BYU, and Utah all get in. Josh Hoover, at the time of recording, again, the fact that this is the first time this year I've been able to start a BYU reaction or a Utah reaction where it's like, oh yeah, well, the clock's still running, but game's over. Usually it's not the case for BYU. Josh Hoover, 10 for 23, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. That's elite. TCU, 33 carries, 121 yards, 3.7 yards per carry. That's elite defense. I'm not saying what TCU is doing is elite, by the way. I should clarify. That sucks. And it's because BYU's defense showed up this week. Bear Bachmeier, 23 for 33. It's not great, but 296 yards, a touchdown efficiency-wise, it is. He was everything you needed him to be, and the run game was there. 152 yards, 4 yards per carry in the way BYU used it with 3 rushing touchdowns. Bear Bachmeier, another third down and 10-plus rushing touchdown. Incredible. Can't ask for much better than that. BYU 28 first downs to TCU's 15. The Frogs were 1 for 10 on third down. Cougars held them to 304 yards. A passing attack that is so potent, but had less than 200 yards through the air. And BYU, 2 penalties, 25 yards, just 1 turnover. 35 and a half minutes of time of possession. This is the definition of flipping the script. BYU lost a game to Texas Tech and said, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. The Utah Utes against the Baylor Bears, they went out there, immediate domination. Immediately it's 14-0. From there, things are a little bit hairier at halftime, 28-17. Baylor scores quick, and I'm wondering what is going on with the back end of the defense for Utah. Their secondary just doesn't look right. Then 55-28 is the final score. The Utah Utes putting on a clinic against the Baylor Bears. This is a Utah team that, coming up with Kansas State and Kansas on their schedule remaining, is going to finish at 10-2 and I think can continue to climb in the college football playoff rankings, namely if they have teams ahead of them. Look, it's no surprise. As mentioned, the Oklahoma win against Alabama is not good for the Big 12. But the Texas loss, namely the way they lost it, is great for this conference. Utah only needed 20 first downs. Only needed 103 yards passing because the rushing game had 380. That's the epitome of just what I'm asking for. You see, if there are an infinite amount of numbers, there is a number named Utah. Well, that's stupid. There's not a number named Utah. There will never be a number named Utah. There's also a number named Cougars. Oh, stupid. There's not. If it's infinite, whatever word, if it's infinite, whatever word you want to throw out, there is some number out there that is labeled with that very word, because that's what infinite means. We have infinite numbers. We have infinite words. No, actually, do we have it? I don't think we have infinite words. Those are finite. Therefore, it just helps my point. At some level, we run out of words for the amount of numbers there are. And that's what I wanted. I wanted Utah to create the number Utah and beat Baylor by that many. And they effectively did that. I wanted BYU to create the number Cougars and win by that money. And you say, look, Baylor had 563 yards, 430 of them passing. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. But it was Utah's ability to turn the Bears over, force them into stupid penalties, to ensure that on third down, Utah was lights out defensively. On fourth down, Utah was lights out defensively. The Bears were 8 for 23 combined on third and fourth down. That's what it was, dog. That's what it was. That was the good. And I'm over the moon. I am over the moon with what these two programs did in their respective games. Now it's up to the committee. Again, I tell you, do not be hide your cowardice. Be brave. Be bold, men and women. I think Condoleezza Rice is on there. I think she has. I don't know why. Like, there are certainly women who should be on the board. I agree with that. Beth Mowens would be a great member of the board. I don't know if Condoleezza Rice should be. More at 10. I'll do some digging on that one. Men, women, board members. Sans Mac Rhodes. And hello, Mark Harlan of Utah. Jeez. Please look at the games. Look at the wins. Value the wins. Value the record. That's my plea. Utah took care of business. BYU took care of business in a way that I have not seen the Cougars do yet. I can say decent Power 4 team this year. They broke TCU's will. If I may, honor code violation. Hell yeah. That's awesome. More all week. I got your back, boss. This has been and always will be Power Rankings tomorrow. Locked on. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.